This area, as it continues to extend its way and move due east, I'll get you that updated information in just a moment, but this is extending into an easterly, if anything, an east-northeast trajectory. So those are the areas just to the west of I-77 in Noble County that I'd like you to keep a close, watchful eye on. So those areas, surround yourself with the most interior wall space, as well as just get to the lowest lying area within your house. The tornadic circulation is likely to move into northern Noble County over the next 20 minutes or so. We do have hail potential within this tornado warning cell into Muskingum County, roughly the size of 3/4 of an inch, so just around a nickel in the size of how big I expect this to be in the sense of hail. So here's how conditions have played out over the last several hours. One thing that I would like to take off are the arrows just to make it a little easier for you to read and to understand in the sense of how conditions are playing out. So the National Weather Service has been keeping a close watchful eye on the development of this cell. It was special weather statement. It went from a severe thunderstorm warning and is now indicating low-level rotation, hence why the National Weather Service has indicated and drawn a tornado-warned polygon for areas of southeastern Muskingum County, but I'd still like you into northwestern Noble County to seek shelter and surround yourself with the most interior wall space. So those are how conditions have played out over the last several hours. So I'm going to turn you back into reality, and we're going to time out that cell, as it is, generally speaking, moving due east at roughly 30 miles per hour. So from here, we're going to take this, and we have a point that we're going to draw this out at roughly 30 miles per hour. And again, this will be moving through Cumberland at roughly 9:36, but areas like Bell Valley, Caldwell, Summerfield, even into areas of Monroe County, the northwestern extent of Monroe County, I would still like you to seek shelter or start to gather your plans. I'm Storm Tracker 7 Chief Meteorologist Zach Petty. I'm joined alongside meteorologist Tyler Vanjie as we continue to track two tornado warned cells. However, our attention is still turned to the cell itself moving through Guernsey County. This has a history of producing damaging wind gusts, quarter-sized hail, as well as low-level rotation. In the sense of what we are noticing, we are starting to notice a weakening trend. So whenever it comes into the size comparison, roughly 3/4 of an inch, again, I misspoke. It's roughly the size of a penny. 1 inch is roughly the size of a quarter. So there's the distinction from common things that we are looking at is roughly penny-sized hail within the tornado warned cell down into southern Muskingum County. Tyler, what are you noticing your latest coming in?
Well, despite the size there, I just wanted to pitch in and say, despite the size there of the hail size comparison, guys, traveling along I-70, just think about the speed out there, 55, 70 miles an hour, anywhere between there, and you're experiencing penny-sized or quarter-sized hail hitting your windshield. That'll instantly shatter the windshield out there. So just keep that in mind. If you have any family member or that's getting off work soon in the next few hours, I was out grabbing dinner between the times that I could, and I was talking to a couple people at Subway who are getting off right around 9 p.m. this night. Maybe reach out to that family member. Make sure that they can maybe wait it out if you're heading off of work or 9, 10 o'clock. Maybe you have those teenagers that are at work for the night and they're heading out of work right around 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock at night. Just keep that in mind if these storms continue to brew like they are for the current time being. Like I said earlier, I do expect them to start to die down as they make their way through parts of St. Clairsville where we're not noticing as much just shear within the winds as it decides to roll through that region. But just something to point out there, if you have those kiddos at work or something like that, maybe just give them a text, make sure that their managers know that there is that ongoing weather and give them that shout out. Maybe just stay a few minutes later, 30 minutes, it won't hurt. Now, the storms, like I said, are going to continue through the night tonight. We'll wake up tomorrow. There's still going to be some rain showers left behind. So not only are we dealing with the severe impactful weather of potential wind, damaging wind, and the hail potential, but we're also experiencing moderate to heavy rain. Now, that pink on the screen right there is a good indication that we could see some hail, and that also means that that storm is strengthening. So that's not good news for those just north of Center and Old Washington. I believe this is in parts of Guernsey County, correct, Zach?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, so
Guernsey
that's
County.
what we're looking at here, parts of Guernsey County. That's not good news. So if you live in parts of Kim Bolton, it's sitting directly on top of you. You're probably noticing some hail out there. Avoid going near the windows. Now, necessarily, when the winds aren't necessarily a tornado or they're not reaching down to the ground, they're not funneling, but you still have those damaging winds, that'll create just a vacuum. And if you're next to those windows, it'll shatter the windows and you may get glass in your eyes, etc. So that's not necessarily the business you want to be partaking in. But here's a look at velocity for the current time being. We'll see if we have any updates from the National Weather Service, if we can maybe get off your screen here and have a nice night to close out the night.
In the sense of seeing any updates, it does still indicate, especially with it expected to expire at 9:30, Tyler, I'm not seeing updates directly from the National Weather Service. One thing, too, that we are starting to notice is less lightning. So with that being said, whenever you notice less lightning, that means we're starting to lose updraft ability or potential for towering updrafts and seeing. Although, yes, we are still reporting that pink shade on reflectivity, still the potential for that quarter-sized hail, but with less lightning, that means we are starting to, let's say, die down in the sense of, okay, we're not seeing as much potential. However, this has a history. So in the sense of seeing this continue on, I would not be surprised if it does. We're on it. I'm Storm Tracker 7 Chief Meteorologist Zach Petty. I have meteorologist Tyler Vanjie alongside me as we continue to track this. Now, I do want to continue to keep an eye on things whenever it comes into areas of the Guernsey County area, and I do have some updates coming in from Tyler.
Okay, Zach. So something that I've been hearing from people. So the good news, I have some good news here since we're talking all negative. Parts of Indian Camp over into Bowdoin, Mantua, down there to the south. The good news is we're not receiving any damage reports. So the funnel that was spotted out there, not necessarily contained that pack-a-punch. It didn't necessarily do any damage out there. So that's good news for those who live in the parts of Indian Camp and just to the northwest of there. But for those just to the east of that red there on your screens, still seek shelter immediately.
Right, in the sense of keeping an eye on things. I do want to just take an eagle-eyed view as the entire tri-state area. So the line of showers that are moving into Jefferson, Hancock, and Broke County, just north of Toronto. I'll quickly move in onto this. East of Amsterdam into Jefferson County, Bergholz, Richmond, Island Creek, New Stratton, New Cumberland. You are most likely seeing, there's the light show for sure. Plenty of lightning activity. Would not be surprised if we have pea to penny-sized hail up into Hancock and Broke County. But our attention is still turned to the development of what is ongoing. We have an ongoing, potentially dangerous situation, hence why we broke into regularly scheduled programming across our WTRF family of networks in the sense of what we are seeing. We still have low-level rotation, and just looking at a different aspect of this, it's not as clear. However, I do want to try pointing this out. I do have a negative, and I do have roughly positive, although it's not picking up right here, but I would not be surprised because we are still getting into that coverage hole whenever it comes into being just roughly far enough away from the National Weather Service site located within Moon Township that we might not necessarily be seeing all of the pieces of the puzzle. But in the sense of what we are noticing, that we do have 2 active tornado-warned cells within the Ohio River Valley. Even though Muskingum County is not necessarily the WTRF network in the sense of coverage area, this has our attention because this could still move into the southern extent of Guernsey County and the northwestern extent of Noble County. So taking that eagle-eye view back up and just running through and rehashing everything out. I will turn lightning data back on. Notice within our tornado-warned cell, we are starting to see that weakening in the sense of not as much lightning. That is good news. Noticing a lot of lightning activity up into Tuscarawas, Carroll, Harrison, but mainly within the band of showers and storms for Jefferson, up into Hancock, and the northern extent of Broke County, more so into Hancock County. So what we're seeing here is the potential for pea-sized hail, but we still have some ongoing information. I do want to time this out. Tyler, you can step back in front of the screen. You do have an update for us?
Yeah, Zach, I just wanted to also point out that, we have terrain here across the Mountain State, across parts of the Ohio Valley. So something we also need to keep in mind, if they do drop this tornado warning box, if you live in parts of Harrison, if you live in parts of Jefferson, Hancock County, in the northern panhandle, If this box gets dropped and you're only in that severe thunderstorm
Is they just
warning,
trimmed it. They
okay,
have
so
just
there's
trimmed
the
it.
smaller
So-
box now in parts of Guernsey County, and that's in the northwestern part of Guernsey County, making its
Yep.
way through Londonderry. So now's your time in Londonderry to seek shelter immediately.
Right, so as they have just trimmed this, and we were expecting this to happen, this is falling just north of I-70 up into areas. This now includes Odell, Birmingham, right along Old 21 Road in Guernsey County, just south and west of Township Highway 586, along Township Highway 858, County Road 585, Pebble Road. These are some of the street levels that I'm at least able to see. Winter set along into areas like Birmingham. So they did trim this tornado warning, so it's now more so encompassing that cell. So in terms of looking at potential circulation, the latest coming into us from the National Weather Service is that we still have the potential for the cell within Muskingum County, because again, we are tracking 2 potentially dangerous situations ongoing right now. The cell that is moving through Muskingum County, as it has the potential, as it could move in to Noble County, as this winds start to shift in the upper levels of the atmosphere. Why are we concerned about this? Because it could move into areas like Cumberland, which is located within Guernsey County, Bell Valley, Pleasant City, areas within Opperman, Bluebell, Glenwood, right along the border of Guernsey and Noble County, more so just that southwestern extent of Guernsey County. This has our attention in the sense of what we are seeing for potentially dangerous situation with ongoing weather conditions across Muskingum County. But updated information for us in regards to our cell within Guernsey County, I don't have any. However, I will still time this out. I don't have any reason to believe that this is not still moving a genuine or a general due east at roughly 45 miles per hour. So what we're going to do is we're going to time this out. We are starting to see that leading edge or bow starting to take shape yet again. So what we're going to do, we're going to time this out, roughly moving due east at 45 miles per hour. And we're going to time this out, where we can expect this into areas of southern Harrison, the northwestern extent of Belmont, as well as the eastern extent of Guernsey County. So this will be moving through Londonderry. The update for you at this point in time in the eastern extent of Guernsey County at 9:32, Holloway at 9:44, and Flushing at 9:49. So that's the latest that we have whenever it comes into how they have trimmed the tornado warning, just to encompass this darker shade of reflectivity. So we're going to clear this out. So although we are starting to see less lightning, you'd still be questioning, well, how come we're not seeing the tornado warning dissipate? It's more so that we're starting to interact with some of the upper level energy that is tapping in. And I do expect there to be a feeding effect in the sense of what we're starting to see as well. Meteorologist Tyler Vangie has an update. Tyler, what are you seeing from the Muskingum County cell?
All right, so good news here if you live in Noble County down into Ohio. So Noble County, previously the track here with this cell was more so an easterly track. But if we could throw a time lapse over the last 15 to 30 minutes, watch what happens here with this cell. It actually starts to track more northerly than the box is actually outlined for. So if you live in parts of Noble County where you're in northwestern part of Noble County, Ohio, where we were expecting to see this cell actually move right through your area, so Cumberland, it's actually going to shift just to the north of you.
So with those updates coming in, this is a very active and fluid situation. So right now, although we're not necessarily seeing the high reflectivity values, one thing too that I do want to point out, so we're going to take this back into current mode. I'm going to change this. We're going to go to the Wilmington. Not necessarily seeing that. Again, we're just getting into that coverage area. If Charleston has anything, we're going to switch this over to our Charleston radar. Again, it's not necessarily painting a pretty picture. Even though this reflectivity values just east of Philo, off into Chandlersville, Griffin, Smith Mill, Freeland, and Muskingum County, even though we're not necessarily seeing the brighter reflectivity values, we are still having the potential because we have ongoing velocity. But again, we're just getting out of our coverage area whenever it comes into our velocity or our radar scan coming into us from the National Weather Service in Pittsburgh.
Another thing to think about, Zach, is these storms are sitting up right over Barnesville. Pittsburgh's up to the northeast of that. So we're shooting this radar through a thunderstorm, so we're not necessarily detecting the whole storm itself. So it may
Correct.
not be necessarily being shown here on radar the entire storm. We may just only be looking at the tops of those thunderstorms that are climbing even higher than the thunderstorms currently over parts of Guernsey County.
That is a very good point that Tyler does bring up in the sense of how far away, but that's still no excuse. We do have the reason to believe that we have rotation that could be potentially dangerous, especially with the cell moving into the southern extent of Muskingum County, as well as up into Guernsey County. So as this nears expiration, I have no reason to believe that this will not either be extended. I do not have any reason to believe that this will be canceled. So we're going to continue to keep a close watchful eye on this. If this tornado warning does expire, we will return you back to regularly scheduled programming. However, we still have this active tornado warning within our coverage area. So this is more so why we're continuing to sustain ourselves on the airwaves and making a presence to you, just tracking this potentially dangerous situation, but still keeping a close watchful eye on the developments of that cell into Muskingum County. So ongoing conditions over the last couple of hours have favored the development for sustaining. This is why we haven't seen this get deteriorated yet. This tornado warning cell was issued at roughly 8:38, and we've been tracking and monitoring this since then. Although the good news is we are starting to see this getting trimmed. But again, if we wanted to time this out, we are not necessarily seeing this is us pulling into a time lapse over the last couple of hours. Notice how this has a history as we continue to watch this moving through Muskingum County. Here is that leading edge that I was most concerned about with the bow. Although we are starting to see it fade, we still have enough belief to continue to stay on this in the sense of rotation, especially in the low levels of the atmosphere. The other thing, watch how this plays out. So here's our rotation that we're keeping an eye on. Although we're starting to get farther away, we don't necessarily have the full picture whenever it comes into, are we actually truly seeing this low-level rotation, especially whenever it comes into our velocity scans. But in the sense of seeing how this plays out with local radar over the last couple of hours, we still have every reason to believe that we still have enough of a couplet, winds going towards the radar site located in Moon Township, also enough of a belief for winds going away from the radar to keep us within a couplet area. Tyler, if you can put on correlation coefficient just to see if we are seeing any debris aloft, and zoom into this cell up into northern Guernsey County for me. I don't necessarily have anything to see in the sense of debris coming in, and then if you can also flip this back, zoom out just a touch, and we'll go back to reflectivity just to see where this leading edge of, so starting to see, I think it's more so going to be within this back end itself. We're not necessarily seeing enough for me to say that we are seeing any sort of debris that is lofted aloft, but here's our areas of our couplet, our winds. Okay, so we are starting to see just a slight tightening. Notice how our velocity vector or our velocity were not as tight whenever it comes or as bright of a green. But it does look like we could have enough of a potential, Tyler, if you go back to our radar and then zoom back in so we can get a county or a map view, a road view, if you could say. So just east of Odell, off into the north, just through Birmingham, just into the east, let's say off into areas like Martha Road, just south of State Route 258 into areas of Tuscarawas County, extending on into Harrison County right now towards Westchester. We are starting to see that low-level rotation increasing. We also have that leading edge of higher reflectivity to lead us to believe moderate to heavy rainfall continues even without the lightning potential. That sunshine that was present earlier this afternoon as well as into this evening, as well as a surge in temperatures thanks to a southerly wind component, along with moisture transport. This all factors into sustaining potentially dangerous and long-lived tornadic activity. So now we are roughly getting into that 50-minute time period. I understand. We want to return you back to regularly scheduled programming. However, this is that potentially dangerous situation that we were briefing and discussing over the last couple of days, especially by the time we transition from Easter Sunday into the beginning of our work week. So time-lapse over the last half hour. How are conditions playing out? We still have ongoing potentially dangerous situations whenever it comes into tornadic activity. Tyler, what are you seeing coming into us from Muskingum County?
So just real quick, I just wanted to say we are currently dropping over Muskingum County. We're dropping that box there. The tornado warn cell has now sort of diminished enough to where it's safe enough to say, you know, we're not seeing a whole lot of rotation in that. So now the main focus here as we move forward is going to be the tornado warning over Guernsey County, Ohio. Well, that actually may have just been dropped as well. Let's check in on that. So the latest update here,
looks-
looks like they have dropped the box there,
It,
Zach.
it does look like that we have expired. So it does look like information coming into us from the National Weather Service. It does look like they are looking into potentially keeping this, but right now, this is a good place. So actively, so as of right now, we do not have any active tornado-warned cells within the tri-state area. So we're going to return you back to regularly scheduled programming here within a moment. But as of right now, the tornado-warned cell into Guernsey County has expired as of 9:30, as well as the cell into Muskingum County. We are no longer detecting low-level rotation. So over the last couple of hours, we have been tracking and monitoring. However, if you still live into the southwestern extent of Harrison County, northwestern extent of Belmont County, even into the eastern extent of Guernsey and southern Tuscarawas County, you're not necessarily out of the clear. Damaging wind gust is still a potential. Quarter-sized hail is still a potential, as well as the leading edge of heavy rain that could lead to ponding water on the roadways. So we're not necessarily seeing a hail threat right now, but we do not have any active tornado warnings. So that is the good news. So for now, I'm Storm Tracker 7 Chief Meteorologist Zach Petty. I have meteorologist Tyler Vangie alongside me. We'll continue to keep you updated and have some updates for you coming up next on our newscast, first at 7 News at 10, and of course on 7 News at 11. So for now, we will return you back to regularly scheduled programming on our WTRF family of networks.